I was about to propose when I overheard her in the restroom. I'll just say yes, take the ring, and ghost him. I went back to the table, got down on one knee, and asked the waitress to accept a $10,000 tip paid for by the returned ring. The look on my ex's face as the entire restaurant cheered. I've always been a man who believes in grand gestures. When I love completely. When I commit entirely. For the past 3 years, my world has revolved around my girlfriend, Jessica. I thought we were building a future, a real one. So, I decided to make the grandest gesture of my life. Last night was our 3-year anniversary. I booked a table at Aria, one of those impossibly exclusive restaurants where the tasting menu costs more than most people's rent. In my jacket pocket, nestled in a velvet box, was a 3-carat diamond ring. It had cost me just over $30,000. It was a symbol of everything I felt for her. There was one small practical detail nagging at me. The jeweler had a strict 7-day, no questions asked, full refund policy. After 7 days, it would be store credit only, with a hefty restocking fee. Last night was day 6. I knew I had to propose that night, not just for the romance of the anniversary, but to secure my investment in what I thought was our future. The evening started perfectly. The ambiance was incredible. The food was a work of art. Our waitress, a young woman named Sarah, was wonderful. She was professional and attentive, but I could see a deep sadness behind her eyes. At one point on my way to the restroom, I passed an open service corridor and saw her on her phone, her back to me. She was crying softly. I only caught a few words of her hushed conversation. Don't know how we're gonna make the payment. Mom's next round of treatment starts Tuesday. I just need a miracle. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. It was a brief, private glimpse into a real person's real struggles, a stark contrast to the performative luxury of the dining room. I continued on to the restroom, the moment sticking in my mind. As I was washing my hands, I heard voices from the adjoining women's restroom. The acoustics in old buildings can be strange, and the voices were unnervingly clear. One of them was Jessica's. The other belonged to her best friend, who I knew she was texting. She must have had her on speakerphone. "He's definitely going to do it tonight," Jessica said, her voice giddy and triumphant. "I can feel it. He's been acting nervous all evening." "Oh my God, did you see the box?" her friend asked. "Is it big?" "I haven't seen the ring itself," Jessica replied, and then she laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that didn't sound like the woman I thought I loved. "But the box is definitely a 2-man lift. He's so predictable. He thinks a big rock will make me happy forever." "Well, won't it?" her friend asked. And then Jessica said the words that shattered my entire world. "Of course not, but I'll play the part. I'll cry, I'll say yes, I'll take the ring, I'll post it all over Instagram, make everyone jealous. Then I'll give it a few weeks, maybe a month, and then I'll ghost him. I can sell the ring for at least 20 grand. That's my down payment for the condo I want. It's a perfect plan." I stood there, frozen, my hands under the running water. The sound of their laughter echoed through the wall. It wasn't a betrayal born of passion or a fleeting mistake. It was a cold, calculated financial transaction. I wasn't a partner. I was a mark. The last 3 years of my life had been an elaborate setup for a heist, and the diamond in my pocket was the prize. A strange calm washed over me. The heartbreak was there, a deep, cold stone in my gut, but my mind was working with perfect clarity. I walked back to the table and sat down. Jessica looked at me and smiled, a brilliant, predatory smile. She had no idea I had just become privy to her entire business plan. I saw the whole chessboard. I saw her, the fake queen. I saw the ring, the prize. And I saw the struggling waitress, Sarah, a pawn in someone else's game, a good person who actually needed a miracle. A new, much better grand gesture began to form in my mind. I let us finish the main course. Then, I cleared my throat. "Jessica," I said, my voice steady, "you have made me the happiest man in the world for the last 3 years. And there's something I need to ask you." Her eyes lit up. This was it. The moment she'd been waiting for. I stood up. The diners at the nearby tables quieted down, sensing a moment was happening. I reached into my pocket. I got down on one knee. Jessica put her hands over her mouth in a perfect pantomime of shocked delight. Then I turned my body slightly and called out across the dining room. "Sarah, could you come over here for a moment, please?" Sarah, our waitress, looked up, startled. She hesitantly walked over to our table, a look of complete confusion on her face. "Yes, sir?" I looked up, not at Jessica, but directly into Sarah's worried eyes. I was still on one knee. "Sarah," I began, my voice clear and carrying through the now silent restaurant. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation on the phone earlier. I know that's an invasion of your privacy, and I apologize, but I heard you. I know you are dealing with something incredibly difficult with your mother's health." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Jessica's smile was frozen on her face, her expression turning to stone. "This ring," I said, pulling the velvet box from my pocket and opening it to reveal the diamond, "was a symbol of a future I thought was real. I've just discovered that it is not. I will be returning this ring to the jeweler tomorrow for a full $30,000 refund, as per their 7-day return policy." I paused, letting that hang in the air. Then I looked back at Sarah. "And I would like to formally ask you here in front of everyone if you would be willing to accept a $10,000 tip from those proceeds to help with your mother's medical treatments." The silence in the room was absolute. Sarah was openly crying now, her hand covering her mouth in disbelief. Jessica looked like she had been turned to stone. I stood up, turning to address the entire restaurant. "I believe that in this life we should reward things that are real. Real struggle, real loyalty, real kindness. I also believe that some people deserve a miracle." I then turned and looked directly at Jessica, my voice dropping to ice. "And some people deserve exactly what they get. Jessica, we are done." For a second there was nothing. Then, one person at a nearby table started clapping. Then another, and another. Within 5 seconds, the entire restaurant had erupted into a roar of applause and cheers. It was a standing ovation. Not for a proposal, but for a demolition. Update 1. The moments following my proposal were a blur of surreal, cinematic chaos. The restaurant manager, a tall man with a perpetually concerned expression, rushed over to our table, clearly unsure if he needed to call for security or a paramedic. "Sir, is everything all right?" he asked, his eyes darting between my stony face, Jessica's horrified one, and Sarah, who was now sobbing with what I hoped were tears of joy and relief. "Everything is perfect," I said, my voice calm. "I just made a young lady a very sincere offer." I turned to Sarah. "I am completely serious about this," I told her gently. "I will be at the jeweler's tomorrow when they open. The money will be refunded to my account. If you are comfortable with it, I would like to make the transfer to you immediately after." I took out my business card and handed it to her. "Send me an email with your details. This is real." She just nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming down her face. I then turned back to the manager, pulled a wad of cash from my wallet, enough to cover our exorbitant meal and a generous conventional tip, and placed it on the table. "Thank you for a memorable evening," I said. Then, without a single glance back at Jessica, who was still frozen in her chair like a statue in a museum of terrible life choices, I walked out of the restaurant. The applause had died down, but I could feel the eyes of every single person in that room on my back. The second I was in the back of a taxi, my phone started to vibrate. It didn't stop. A relentless series of calls and texts from Jessica. I ignored the calls and watched the text previews pop up on my screen. "How could you do that to me? You humiliated me in front of everyone. That was my ring. You owe me that ring, you monster. I'm going to ruin you, you hear me? I'll sue you." I read each one with a detached sense of curiosity. There was no apology, no remorse, just pure, uncut rage that her plan had been discovered and her prize had been snatched away. I waited until the stream of messages paused, then I replied with a single text. "I'm sorry you didn't get the condo down payment you were hoping for. I wish you and your future ghosting victims all the best." Then I blocked her number. Next came the predictable text from her friend, the one she had been on the phone with in the restroom. "You are a sick, twisted monster, Ben," it read. "You completely misunderstood a private conversation and used it to publicly torture a woman who loved you." I replied, "My hearing is excellent, and if that's how she treats someone she loves, I'd hate to see how she treats her enemies. Tell your friend to enjoy her newfound fame. I hear the story is already making the rounds on the local food blogs." I blocked her number too. The next morning, I was at the jeweler's at 10 a.m. sharp. It was day 7. I walked in, presented the ring and the receipt, and explained that the engagement was off. The manager was understanding and processed the full $30,000 refund back to my card. The money was officially mine again. As I was walking out, my phone buzzed with an email. It was from Sarah, the waitress. The email was short, heartfelt, and full of disbelief. She thanked me profusely and provided her bank details, saying that she still couldn't believe it was real. I went to my bank, sat down with a personal banker, and initiated a wire transfer for exactly $10,000 to her account. I sent her back a simple email. "It's real. Tell your mom I'm wishing her a speedy recovery." Later that afternoon, I received one of the most moving emails I have ever read. It was from Sarah again. She confirmed the money was in her account. She told me a little about her mother's illness, about the crushing weight of the medical bills that had been suffocating her family for a year. She said my gesture wasn't just a tip. It was a lifeline. It was the miracle she had been praying for. She said she would never, ever forget it. And in that moment, any lingering doubt I might have had about my decision vanished. The money wasn't gone. It wasn't wasted. I had simply reinvested it. I had taken a symbol of a beautiful lie and turned it into the foundation of a stranger's hope. Jessica wanted to use that money to buy a condo. Instead, I used it to buy a good person a little more time with their mother, and that felt like the best deal I had ever made in my life. Update 2. It has been a few weeks since the night I've come to think of as the proposal. The immediate fallout was exactly as chaotic as you'd expect, but now that the dust is settling, the consequences of Jessica's actions and mine are becoming much clearer. Jessica's first move after realizing her angry texts were being ignored was to try and control the public narrative. She took to social media with a vengeance. She posted a long, tearful video. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was running. It was a carefully constructed performance of a heartbroken victim. In the video, she never mentioned the overheard conversation. She never mentioned the ring. She just spun a wild tale about how I, for no discernible reason, had suffered some kind of psychotic break in the middle of the restaurant. She claimed I had become paranoid and delusional, that I had stood up and started screaming at her, and that I had publicly humiliated her in a fit of madness before storming out. She ended the video by tearfully asking for privacy. During this incredibly painful and confusing time, it was a bold strategy. She was counting on the fact that no one would contradict her. She was wrong. The restaurant Aria is a hotspot for local food bloggers and critics. Several people who had been there that night were in the food scene and had significant social media followings of their own. Within hours, the comments on her video started to tell a very different story. "I was there," one prominent food blogger wrote. "This is not what happened." The man was calm and spoke clearly. He gave his waitress a life-changing tip. The entire room applauded him for his kindness. Another commenter added, "We were at the next table. He didn't scream at all. He got on one knee and then publicly offered the waitress $10,000 to help her sick mother. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in a restaurant." Even the restaurant's official Instagram account posted a story. It was a picture of a beautiful floral arrangement with a simple caption, "We were honored to witness an act of profound generosity and kindness in our dining room last week. We wish our incredible staff member, Sarah, and her family all the best." Jessica's narrative was not just challenged, it was publicly dismantled by a crowd of witnesses. Her attempt to look like a victim made her look like a liar. She deleted the video within 24 hours, but the screenshots were everywhere. Defeated online, she escalated to a legal threat. I received a thick, intimidating-looking envelope from a law firm. It was a formal demand letter. In it, her lawyer claimed that the engagement ring was a promised gift, and by failing to deliver it, I had breached a verbal contract. It also claimed that my actions at the restaurant constituted intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter demanded I pay Jessica the full $30,000 value of the ring, or they would proceed with a lawsuit. I had been expecting this. I immediately forwarded the letter to my own lawyer, a man who eats frivolous lawsuits for breakfast. He laughed when he read it. His response was a work of art. The letter he sent back was terrifyingly professional. It stated, point by point, why her claim was baseless. First, no gift is legally considered given until the recipient takes possession of it, which she never did. The proposal was never completed. Second, her claim of emotional distress was undermined by the multiple witness accounts that praised my actions as calm and generous. Then came the masterstroke. The final paragraph of the letter stated that if she chose to proceed with this baseless lawsuit, we would immediately file a motion to dismiss and countersue for all legal fees. Furthermore, we would make the central pillar of our defense the conversation I overheard in the restroom. The letter stated our intention to publicly depose both her and her friend under oath about their conversation. It described their plan as a conspiracy to commit fraud by obtaining a high-value asset under false pretenses, with the express intent to sell it for personal gain. The letter concluded by saying that we were confident that the details of their plan, once made public in a court of law, would be of great interest to both the media and perhaps even law enforcement. It was a checkmate. She was threatening to sue me for a ring she was planning to steal. The threat of having her entire scheme exposed under oath was too much for her. I have heard nothing from her lawyer since. Final update. It has been 6 months since I walked out of that restaurant and into a new, much quieter life. The echoes from that night have finally faded, but the consequences have proven to be permanent. The legal threat was the end of Jessica's campaign against me. She had no move left to make. Her public narrative had been destroyed, and her private legal attack had been exposed as a bluff built on a foundation of fraud. She went completely silent. The story of the proposal that wasn't became something of a local legend. For a few weeks, I couldn't go out to a nice dinner without getting a few knowing looks or a discreet thumbs up from a waiter. It was bizarre, but it faded. The story, however, stuck to Jessica. The grapevine, as it always does, provided the final chapters. Her social circle, which was built on an image of wealth and success, began to abandon her. Being publicly exposed as a liar and, more damningly, as someone who had fumbled a $30,000 payday, made her toxic. Her friendship with the girl from the restroom reportedly imploded in a flurry of mutual blame. The last I heard, Jessica is struggling. Her plan to get a condo failed, and she's still in her old, overpriced apartment, trying to maintain a lifestyle she clearly can't afford without a benefactor. She flew too close to the sun, and the fall has been a long one. But the real story isn't about her. It's about Sarah, the waitress. About a month ago, I received a letter in the mail. It was a handwritten card from Sarah. Inside was a photograph of her and an older woman, her mother, sitting on a park bench, both of them smiling. Her mother looked frail but happy. The letter was simple. She told me her mom had successfully completed her round of treatments and was now in remission. She said the $10,000 had lifted a weight off their family that was so immense she didn't have the words to describe it. It hadn't just paid for doctors. It had bought them peace of mind in the most stressful time of their lives. It had allowed her to quit her second job and just be a daughter again. She ended the letter by saying, "You turned the worst night of my life into the biggest blessing I have ever received. Thank you." I put that card on my desk. I look at it every day. People might say I was foolish. They might say I wasted $10,000 out of spite. They are wrong. It wasn't an act of spite. It was an act of redirection. I took the energy of a hateful, greedy act and I redirected it towards a loving, desperate need. I didn't lose $10,000. I spent it. I spent it on turning a moment of personal humiliation into a spectacle of public justice. I spent it on the priceless memory of the look on Jessica's face. I spent it on the sound of a room full of strangers cheering for an act of unexpected kindness. Most of all, I spent it on that picture of a mother and daughter sitting on a park bench, smiling. Jessica wanted to use me to get a piece of property. Instead, I used her greed to give a good person a piece of their life back. And I can tell you, without any hesitation, it was the best money I have ever spent.